So the first part of the painting, even on that one or any of them, is laying down your dark color, the color you want to give the dots. It doesn't take much. So these markers just slide into this thing if you haven't seen one before. And I'll hold it down tight around it. Here, I'll try to do it from the back. And then it's just... So that's it for the dots. You can see. So that's the base, just the dots. And then whatever color, like on that bait fish one, I'll do gray, and then kind of soft gray, like just kind of blend it. The easiest thing to do after you get the dots on, if I can find it, is if you try to hold it with your fingers are going to turn green or whatever color you're painting. So the best is if you can get your bodkin, poke halfway through, you can hold it from the back and not get paint all over yourself. So we'll get this started. I'm not going to go through it yet, but then it holds it in place. I looked at one of the like regular airbrush systems with the paint, because those guys, there's a guy on Instagram, Jerkbait something, his stuff is unbelievable, but cleaning up, this is way easier to keep clean. Alright. And one thing I found out with these, the spray kind of comes off this way, not straight. So whatever you're aiming at, usually it hits it higher than what you want. So I'll usually start in the middle. Kind of turn it as I go. Just lay down a pretty quick, pretty simple. Oh yeah. I like giving it an orange mouth. So if you're doing these, it's easier if you just to knock out a bunch of heads while you're doing it. Like lay them all down and do them step by step and get them done. And I'll get the belly a little bit here. So then it gives it. So it gives it the little orange mouth and a little bit of an orange belly. One thing about these Copics, since I don't know if they're necessarily permanent markers, that stuff will wear off if you don't coat it. So all those flies I passed around, those all have Loon soft head coating on them. So it's pretty quick and pretty clean. I mean, there's not a lot of overspray or whatever, but it definitely, here, I'll pass that around one.
It's all for us anyway.
Yeah, right. Absolutely it is.
For sure. What's wrong with that?
Right.
It's have to be, it's like AA, you have to admit it or something.
UTC 140 thread. And this fly is pretty easy to put together.
When you got the Copic, did you pick your colors of pins, or did they come in a group? Or?
No, I just got these at Michael's.
Michael's?
Yeah, and I ordered this at Michael's too. You can. I waited until they have those 40% off coupons on, and ordered it. And same thing with those markers. You're always getting like a 40% or whatever. My wife does in the mail, so I'll take that and get them, because those markers are like $7 a piece, I think. They last quite a while though. I've done a lot of flies with the grays and they're still working fine.
At their website, they usually have that coupon too that you can just print off and get the code off of. If you don't get it in the mail, you can go to the website.
This is just like 20 or 30 pound mono. We'll do a loop and it keeps that back in those legs from fouling quite so bad. Just lay it down on each side of the hook.
He's very talented at all this stuff.
and then make a loop and lay it down on the other side. You can, this UTC 40s, or not UTC 40, GSP is nice and strong, so you can crank stuff down as tight as you want. Alright. These legs already, basically I did the same thing. I just colored the top olive and then the feet yellow and orange and hit it underneath that same stencil with a little brown.
So are you gonna coat those two?
No, it holds into this stuff. I'm not sure. It's kind of like
So you don't have to iron it?
suede kind of. No, it holds on to those pretty good, but for some reason on that foam it will rub off or smear if you don't coat it. I know a guy I know did some adjustment to this where you can put Sharpies in it. I don't know exactly how he did it, but with the Sharpies you wouldn't have to coat them. So this part's not really necessary either, but I think it looks better with a little bit of a skirt in the back. So it's just going to be that top layer. I'm just going to take a clump off here and cut it. Actually, the only reason I use this stuff is because I had a bunch of it laying around and didn't know what else to do with it. So you could use anything. Craft fur, any flash. So put it right on top and crank it down. Spread it out a little bit. Alright, so one thing with those heads, like I kind of know because I've done a lot of these flies, but you kind of want to find out how much room you're going to have in order to get the head to fit, because you don't want to make this fly and then not be able to fit the head on with the popper. The head's the most important part. I think I showed you guys last time I did a foam one, because these don't come with holes. The easiest way to do it is to get the black in and kind of line it up dead center. And if you just kind of slowly go back and forth, you can kind of see where the foam is starting to push out, and that's where you're going to come through. So if you don't like it, you need to back it up and kind of readjust the angle. This one actually went through pretty straight, so I'm going to go ahead and pop it through. But then that saves you from putting a bunch of holes in this foam. The scissors just kind of help dilate the back, so when you slide it over that chenille, it won't stop. It gives it a little more room. Some of that chenille will go on the side. So I'll pop this guy on and kind of get a mental picture of where it needs to be. So the foam on these is curved in the back, so you actually need to tie it a little bit further than, right even with it to get it to butt up flush with it. So alright, then the rest of the body's just this game changer chenille olive.
You ever use the heads backwards?
On those other ones I will, the ones that are
More of a chugger?
yeah, because actually those that top one, this one's the new Howitzer heads, these baitfish heads. These are the old double barrel poppers. So with the double barrels, yeah, you can tie a frog and then spin it around and make a diving head for like a streamer. And I started airbrushing these heads too. Alright, you don't need a whole lot of this stuff. Kind of get a little bit off so you can tie down that main string here. Alright. So with this chenille stuff, some guys steam it first, and it makes all these fibers kind of stick out, like instead of being all smashed to one side and stuff. I don't know if it really matters. If you brush it back with your fingers as you're wrapping it, you can pretty much keep it from getting the fibers from getting too trapped. The only time it might be very beneficial to steam it is if you're actually doing a game changer with it and you need the length up at the head to keep that kind of bait fish profile. So we wrap this stuff on pretty dense, really. Alright, do one more turn. Tie it off here. We'll add some rubber legs. With those, the way those double barrel poppers are set up, you can just poke that through and pull some legs through the foam. The way these heads are, there's really not a spot to get the legs to go through the foam, so I kind of had to play with a couple ideas to get it, and the easiest is just to tie them in right behind it, and right behind the head here. For the legs, it's just silly legs. I'll do 3 of them with 2 overhand knots to kind of give the feet. So you just do 2 overhand knots, 1 on each side here. Go to this end, do the same thing. Alright. Tie these in. So I'll kind of tie them at an angle and pull this one over onto that side. And as I'm tying it down, I'm actually wrapping forward, and then that gives you space for when you pull this back over to wrap on top of it and wrap it backwards. Alright. Then you kind of want to lay down a little bit of thread on that bare hook for the glue, so the head has something to stick to. Forward and a whip finish right there. If I'm using this GSP thread to cut it clean, it's actually easier to do it with the razor blade than it is a pair of scissors. Even sharp scissors, for some reason, it wants to fray instead of just cut clean. So a lot of times if I'm cutting or using this, I'll just hit it with the razor blade and it cuts a lot cleaner. Alright, now we can trim these feet up. Alright, this is just Loctite. You can use that Zap-A-Gap or anything. I like this stuff because it gives you just a fraction of a second longer if you need to make any adjustments before it's too late. So I get those legs back and get that eye started, and once you start getting back to the glue, you got to go. So we'll pop it through, and then you can kind of make any adjustments you need to line it up. With the medium eyes, it takes 6 millimeter. With the medium heads, it takes 6 millimeter eyes. So these are just 6 millimeter living eyes. And I'll just put a dot in each hole here. You don't want to overkill, because then what happens is you push it in and your finger's stuck to the popper. So just a little bit goes a long ways here. The other thing, once you start sticking your finger on that stuff, start getting layers of skin on the eyes and stuff, and they're not shiny anymore.
Yeah, you can't use your finger to access your iPhone either.
It's called cataract, right?
Huh?
It's called cataract.
Yeah.
I don't know, in all the years of fly tying, I've never heard the word dilate. Well done. That's cool. Yeah, I think this is about what they did.
We always hate to get to this point though, and then
Yeah.
F it up, you know?
No.
You're like pretty much done, and then you do something, you're like, oh man. I'll wipe a little bit of that excess off of my finger. And then this loon soft head, it dries pretty quick, but you're gonna have to hang it and let it dry. I mean, it works well though. That hard head, for some reason, this stuff can flex and move with that foam. That hard head's more of a shell, so what happens is when that foam moves and stuff, it cracks and it'll start to like chip off of the fly. This stuff works way better on the foam stuff.
How are you protecting all the time you put on there?
All the
You put something, you put a collar on it or whatever, so you don't slop something into your.
Oh, back here?
Yeah.
No, I'm just careful with it.
Okay.
I'll,
Okay.
the other thing, this foam, I'll trim off. I forgot to do this. I'll kind of cut down this belly a little bit so it's all kind of flat. And with this chenille or any of that game changer stuff, it's easier to cut it with a pair of craft scissors than it is your fly tying scissors. Alright, so I'll coat this guy. And this stuff starts off white, but it dries clear. I'll just pick a spot and you're just painting it on.
Do you want a forcep to hold that with when you're done?
Yeah.
Peter, would you grab a forcep out of the fly tying stuff in the back?
When you get up close to, like you said, where your material and stuff is, you just kind of got to be careful.
Okay.
This stuff's a little bit thicker, so it's not real runny, so it's kind of easier to control than some other. I wouldn't want to try to do it with just head seaman or something like that. I always try to get a bunch in the eyes.
Thank you, Peter.
I hate when the eyes fall off a fly. So then I'll like a half of a dip here and go on the face, mouth, whatever. Kind of work around the eye of the hook here. Why it's still a little wet sometimes. I need to get one of those turners. Those guys that do a lot of poppers and stuff have the wheel that turns. I'll just loosen up this and spin it for a minute to get that stuff, because at first when this stuff sets up pretty quick, but if you just let it set like this, some of it will start sliding down to the bottom. But this is about the most durable stuff I've found for the heads, for sure. I tried that loon hardhead on a bunch and wished I wouldn't have. Alright. There's his fruit.
Yeah, I know that frogs be dizzy.
And that was a size 1/0 B10S hook.
So you don't have to cure that stuff.
No, this stuff isn't a UV. I tried the UV stuff on it too. That stuff cracks. This is about,
Really good.
this takes a while to set up, but it's the best for the foam heads, I think. That UV stuff you gave me is good. That's Solazar or Solazar, yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
See, I asked you about that. I like it.
Yeah, I do too. It's a good
It's really thin.
and it cures pretty quick is
Yeah.
what I